Yeah, I know, my shirt matches my background, and that's for two reasons, really. I love the color gray in all things, and it's laundry day, so I am forced to walk around wearing a shirt that says book lovers never go to bed alone. Yeah, that has nothing to do with today's pour, just pointing out the weirdness of it all. And before I tell you what today's pour is, hello, I'm Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things. And today is day 116 of 365 days of soap. So yeah, I'm still gonna keep commenting on it. It's triple digits. It's cool. And we are doing a custom bar in a blue agave scent, which was a special request from a Sudser. And not just any Sudser, it was my Soap and Clay Kidlet #1's first grade teacher, who's, now she's in second or will be. Yeah. And I love her. She was the best first grade teacher, second best. She was the second best first grade teacher I've ever met in my life. The first best would be my grandmother, who was actually my first grade teacher, which is weird in and of itself. Anyway, it's not about teachers today, it's about the bar. Now, it was free reign for the design of this bar, and so I wanted to play with a couple colors that I haven't used in quite a while, and I don't think I've ever used them together. And I also wanted to play with a slanted layers technique, as well as doing some cool, like, not marbling exactly, but using glycerin rivers to achieve a marbled effect in a soap, and the end result is actually pretty cool. So stick around for the process and I'll tell you all about how I do the thing, and we'll go do that now. Okay, so the blue agave soap, and I am making this for my former first grader, now second grader's first grade teacher, for just a fun present because she loves the blue agave blend so very much, and so I wanted to make a soap for her. And this one I really wanted to play with I wanted to play with glycerin rivers, but also marbling, and not marbling in the way that you would sort of expect marbling, like stone, I mean like granite, but I mean kind of like a stone, like a sort of a cut geode maybe, but more like marbling like meat, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. But so to do that, I'm actually working with a very high water percentage in this, and so I am at not exactly whatever full water would mean, but pretty close to this. So it's about 3 times the lye in this particular batch. And also in this recipe I have 50% coconut oil, and that is all of the solid oils that are in there, and then 25% canola oil, and 10% argan oil, and 5% castor, and the rest is apricot. And that's because I actually happen to have a lot of apricot right now. So it's a 50-50 split with a lot of coconut, and that means that the batch is actually going to set up fairly quickly because I'm soaping very low, and coconut oil tends to, firm up quickly. So even with that huge water increase, it's not going to stay this beautiful fluidity for very long, which is really good for the pour that I am working with today. Because while I want to play with those glycerin rivers, I also am working with a slanted layer kind of drop swirl thing to sort of mimic like the marbling in the top rows. So onto the pour, and I have my mold set up on a slant because again, we're doing a slanted layer with some like marbling stuff going on at the top. And you see how thick the batter got? That's for a couple reasons. One, I am working with a batter that has a lot of coconut oil in it, and it's going to firm up reasonably quick, which is good because, you know, usually I don't like, you know, thick batter, but I do for this. I really need it. And two, because I actually did let everything set for quite a while before I poured it. And I also have the mold on a heat pad to get some heat to the mold right away and help the bottom layer firm up more, because I do not want the next layer, which will be a white layer, to break down into that blue. And the way that I'm going to be getting, I mean, we talked about the glycerin or the water content earlier, right? And me wanting to play with sort of like a marbling effect. And, you know, marbling is super awesome. And, you know, again, when you think about marbling, you think that like granite or whatever. But I'm going for marbling more like, you know, if you cut into a geode, or if you, you know, like meat, really, the marbling of like a steak, right? And the way that I am going to, you know, sort of be getting that is by playing with glycerin rivers, because glycerin rivers, again, they're very cool things that you can play with in your soap. And in colored portions, they can show up. And I'm thinking with this quantity of water, they will show up, but they always really seem to show up really well in white. And so what I am going to be, you know, hoping for with all of this is that the top sort of decorative bit that I have for the red or the pink and the blue there, that I'm also going to do a little blend with the white, that will yield some cool, almost translucent areas within, you know, that top swirl on top of the slanted layer. And I will be adding in that beaker that I just, you know, poured into, there's extra water in there, so that will be helping out with making sure that we do get some, you know, glycerin rivers in the top white for sure. Now, when you are working with thick soap like this and you still want to do a swirl, I recommend reserving your superfat. So for those of you who make soap, you are familiar with the concept of superfat, the term superfat. Essentially what it means is you're putting more oil, more fatty acid chains into the recipe than you are lye that can convert it. So there will be a percentage of your oils that will remain not converted into soap chemically at the end of the pour. And for this particular thing, because again, I wanted the soap to get very thick, and it did get very thick because I want to do the layers, and that's awesome, but I'm also wanting to do, you know, kind of like a drop swirl on top. And so this soap is super fatted at 5%, and that 5% actually exists in that, you know, the blue and the pink. That's what the micas were dispersed in. So I reserved 5% of the apricot oil in those two beakers that will allow some extra fluidity of those two colors to allow me to actually do a swirl with them, while the other two can still be, you know, thick enough to do a cool, you know, layer or whatever. And at this point, since I do not need it to be on an angle anymore, that the blue soap is, you know, firmed up really nicely in there, it's not going anywhere, I am going to kind of plop the white on top. And it really is mostly a plop. And see there, there's not a lot of super great porridge going on there. Pouring, not porridge, like the stuff you eat. Yeah. And that's great, because I very rarely ever want thick soap. I love thin batter, but for this, for a slanted layer, I have found that the best way for me, because I don't lack the patience, or I don't have the patience to let the bottom layer set up, you know, on its own, I over soap it, I over mix it so it gets thick, and then I do let it sit so it will start to thicken up before I even start pouring it, just to get a good, you know, slant on it and not have to worry about the color dropping down into, you know, the bottom layer. And that has just worked for me, really. But one of the not so great things about doing it this way, if you want to do a drop swirl on the top, it's going to be hard to get this really thin batter that are in these two beakers through that top layer of white, because it's, you know, very thick, like very thick. And so you have to pour really high and with purpose. And you see it's spreading out on the top, but it's also breaking through the white just a little bit and creating, you know, something cool on the inside. But like the biggest thing you can do with your soap when you are pouring it, you know, if you're wanting to do a drop swirl into a thick batter, is to pour it super high and kind of fast. I guess it's a weird way to describe it. Not necessarily fast, but you're not letting it drizzle out of the you know, container. You want to pour with purpose, essentially, to really give some force behind the pour itself so it can drop into that bottom layer. Now for the top, obviously we don't have to worry about that going into the bottom layer, so we are just going to put all the rest of the stuff into the mold, get all the colors in there, and then it's going to be, you know, a messy top with all of that, and then, you know, it's cool. We can then take the skewer to it and make it pretty. I used to do this. I used to put my colors down, like, just painstakingly, you know, detailed with my top design, and I would put the colors in. Oh, and with this is a secondary just sort of push into the middle white layer, just to make sure that some of the colors ended up in there. And it's also going to help out with the geode pattern too, because I don't necessarily want like a drop swirl, like a teardrop looking thing going on in the white. I kind of do want it to have some flat layers, and again, work with the glycerin rivers to create some marbling, really. So, and anyway, so for the decorative top, I used to really spend a lot of time making sure those lines were perfectly straight and putting them in the mold. And I guess for you as an end viewer, it might be more enjoyable to watch that, like, oh, look at the precision and the loveliness. But I don't know, I'm not that kind of soaper, so I don't really do that anymore. So, you know, laying everything down in a perfect, you know, lined whatever for the top, I don't know, it feels like I would just be doing it for the video, and then that's just weird because it's not how I sew. But anyway, that's the messy top, and then we are going to take the skewer to that and swirl it into, you know, some beautiful awesomeness, and it's going to look great. So just kind of haphazardly and randomly do a fun swirl with that. It's not really random, actually. There's a reason for all of that. That was my design, but it looks random, and it also looks cool. Now this is going to be put in the oven to C-pop overnight, because I love gel and C-popping things, and then we will cut this beauty tomorrow. Okay, it is cut day, and look how beautiful that dark blue turned out on top. There's even still a little bit of sheen from the micas that were at the very bottom of the beaker. That's lovely. I definitely see some craggy areas because you're dealing with thick soap. But again, I cut my soap so early that it's very soft, and so you can use the end pieces there on the right and the left to fill in any sort of, you know, gaps. Oh, but that's beautiful. Look at that. So the sort of cream color in the top middle there, like, you know, just above the blue on the right and the pink on the kind of center, that creamish color, and those glycerin rivers are beautiful too within the blue portion on the bottom. But that cream color is what I was going for. It's almost a translucent, it's so beautiful. And that was, again, sort of creating a more concentrated glycerin river within the white portion that got swirled in the drop swirl, you know, part of the bar of the pour, to create kind of, again, marbling. And I think that's lovely. That's completely beautiful. I love everything about that. I would say, oh yeah, look at that. That's super pretty. And then the coolness of the, you know, the glycerin rivers on the blue part as well. This is great. This is absolutely what I wanted with this. Just because, you know, we're always talking about marbling soaps, and it's pretty, and the mica lines with just oil, and that's awesome too. Don't get me wrong, that's super awesome. But this is this is cool too. Yeah, and again, the holes that I'm filling in there, yeah, well, whatever. I really have no problem whatsoever with just sort of cleaning up my bars at the end as needed. And honestly, I think most soap makers, you know, sort of do that. We have a sort of intimate connection to every bar of soap that we make, right? Because we make it and then we cut it, and so, you know, our hands are on every single one of them, our eyes are on every single one of them. It's, you know, just a few minutes worth of my time to just go through and double check and make sure that everything is, you know, sealed up nicely and we don't have any holes or whatever, and if we do, we can fix them. So I don't tend to really super mind any of the holes, but that is just so pretty. I really, really do enjoy this soap. And I also enjoy using my, you know, end pieces as putty, essentially. That's, that could be a different kind of, you know, soothing soap thing, really. We should just have people fixing soap. Is that a thing? Is that something someone would be into? Because I'm very into that. I'm not gonna make a video on it because no, but I enjoy doing it, you know, like, it's me and I enjoy doing that, so that works out too. But yeah, that everything about this bar is precisely what I wanted to do with it, with the cool glycerin rivers you have going on at the bottom, as well as the cool marbling with the swirl on the top. I think this is an absolutely successful bar. And again, the glycerin rivers, that we form those by having extra water. So as a result, the soap will actually take a little bit longer to fully cure up. It will not stop losing water weight for at least 4 weeks for a guy like this. But, you know, that's okay. That's not, you know, an issue for, you know, soap makers, because we're used to having to have patience for the things. But no, yeah, that is it. It's the Slanted Layers Drop Swirl Blue Agave Fun with Glycerin Rivers and Marbling. And, you know, look at that. That is so pretty. I love the texture and then the bright colors on top. And yeah, that's, I love that. That's, ooh, pretty. And there it is, the Slanted Layers Blue Agave, all the beautiful ever soap thing. And it really is all the beautiful ever. I really like how it worked with the glycerin rivers and creating kind of, I don't know, it's like a geode that's cut open, or there at the top with the drop swirl. It was lovely. I was really happy that that all ended up working out, and I love the scent of this bar, Blue Agave, and it's always a fun blend to use, you know, in a soap as well. So I am glad that I got to do that. Now, I did make extra bars of this, so if you are interested in this soap, you can totally find it on the website. It is at soapandclay.com. If you are interested in, you know, more soapy things, you should subscribe to the channel and do the things, because we do this every day and you could be here for it too. And that does it for me for today. And I hope you had a really good time. I hope you learned some cool stuff about glycerin rivers. Don't try to avoid them. Use them to your advantage. And yeah, that's again it for me today. Again, thank you. And again, I will see you tomorrow. Bye.